Hi everyone and welcome back to my channel. Today's video is going to be all about supplies. That's one thing that I hear a lot on my Instagram, people asking me about the brushes, paper, even small things like pencils, erasers. I'll share everything with you today. In case you're new here and you don't know me, I'm Kanchan Kaul. I'm a self-taught artist, illustrator and a Skillshare top teacher. I also have a small creative business where I design and sell watercolor brushes and paper that pair perfectly for my style of painting. I love sharing content about my art on my other social media platforms and I would love to see you there as well. Alright, let's get started. So the first things first, everyone asks me about my brushes, so we'll get started with the brushes. I obviously love the brushes that I have designed and I sell on my website as well. I will pick my top 3 from there if I have to pick from the brushes that I sell, but I will also give you alternatives from other brands that I used to use before I had my own brand, so you have an alternative choice as well. Alright, so if I was in a deserted island and I wanted to take just a couple of maybe 3 brushes, I cannot choose less than 3 brushes from my brand of brushes, I would go with the size 4 round brush, and that's because it's somewhere in the middle in the set. I have size 2, 4, 1, 2, 4 and 6, but I will go with 4 because somewhere in the middle I can manage with 4. The other brush that I would love to keep with me is my detailing brush. This is super fine, super delicate brush, and it is the only brush which can help you when you need it. There is no other brush to replace this. So I love this brush for those fine little veins and details on petals and leaves. So this is the other brush that I'll keep with me. It has been chewed by my dog. But of course I have others. But I still continue to use this because, yeah, why throw just because it's chewed, right? The other brush that I will take with me is my size 1 round rigger brush. So it's a round brush, but it is also very similar to a rigger brush and it is great for details as well. Not as fine as the one which is the detailing brush, but it is still great for some of the details. So I use this a lot. So yeah, if I had to choose only 3 brushes that could be taken with me out of all the brushes that I have, these are my top 3 brushes. And if I was not in that deserted island situation and I could choose a few more brushes, then I would take the entire set with me, obviously, just in case you need a bigger brush or a smaller brush, you have all of those. The other thing I have on my website is this mop brush. I love this mop brush for washes. If I want to make something very flowy and not very restricted as my other brushes, I would go with this. What I prefer, the qualities in my brush is they need to be stiff. I don't like very soft brushes. Even my mop brush is not super soft. It is softer than my round brushes, but not very soft. And I like my brushes to have a very pointed tip. So it's just the best thing to have when you're working in watercolor, especially for florals. If you're painting different subjects, I think these qualities might differ. I know a lot of people love mop brushes for their feel to it, right? The soft feel and the amount of water it holds, because they are painting landscapes and things like that. But for my style of painting, I like a little bit more structure to my brushes, and these brushes are perfect. So if you want to go for other brands, the only other brand that I have tried and I love, which has similar, I wouldn't say the same thing. I've never found a brush which has that perfect point. Usually it is natural hair brushes which will have that perfect point. And those synthetic brushes usually don't have such a nice sharp point. So I end up having these natural hair brushes are too soft, and I don't want such a soft brush. So I wanted a little bit more structure to my brush, and I also wanted those point that the natural hair brushes give. So that's how I ended up with my own brand of brushes. But if you have to choose something else, I would go with let me show you that brush. So if I have to choose any other brand, I would go with probably these silver brushes. they do claim to say that claim to be very soft, but they're not super soft because they are synthetic after all. So I don't know if they're synthetic, fully synthetic, or they are mixed. I'm not really sure. But anyways, these silver brushes are something that I'd been using before I had my own brand of brushes, and they were kind of good because not super soft, not very stiff as well, and they had a decent enough point, not as sharp as that I would like. The For the detailing, I used to use this Princeton brush, Princeton Heritage Short Liner. So it is not a liner, it is still a liner brush, but it is a short liner. It has smaller bristles, and it's very easy to control and make details with this. The only problem is this brush is not very easily available everywhere, so you can't just walk into any store and find it. You might have to see online, maybe most of the online shops might have it, but I was finding it very difficult to find this brush, so I ended up buying like a couple to keep them as backup at the time whenever I used to find them. Now I use my own brand of brushes, so I don't really need them. But yeah, if you want to buy something other than my brushes, then this is good for detailings. Princeton Heritage Short Liner. So for the brushes, I think that's all I have. My set of brushes kind of serves me the purpose for my kind of painting. I don't use a lot of washes as such, so I don't have bigger wash brush or anything like that. I do use one big mop brush sometimes, but very very rarely. So I have this this is also this is Princeton Neptune. This is Princeton Neptune oval wash brush, 3/4 inch, 3x4 inch, and this I use very rarely. If I'm painting on a very big paper and I wanted to paint some really dramatic petals or something like that, then I'll use it. But yeah, I don't recommend if you're just starting out to have this brush. You don't really need it. If you're looking to draw or paint something like my art style, flowers basically, then the round brushes and a couple of detailing brushes, they should be enough for you to get started. Enough about the brushes, I'll talk about my paper now. So for the paper, let me show you. I use this paper pad, which is obviously my own on my website, but the qualities of this paper that I would recommend for you in case you're going for any other brand is check for it to be 100% cotton. I think 100% cotton paper are expensive, but they give you the best results and a lot of satisfaction when you're painting with them, because the water gets absorbed in the paper so nicely and it stays wet for so long, and it holds the water so well. It doesn't like warp the paper, you know what I mean. You'll see you'll notice that when you use non cotton paper, I've seen sometimes the water is just floating on top. It's not getting absorbed if it's not cotton paper. So yeah, if you're going for any watercolor paper, look for it to be 100% cotton, which is like this. And the other aspect of the paper that I love to make sure is 300 GSM. So the minimum weight I would always go for is 300 GSM. Sometimes for sketchbooks, I would go for a lesser weight paper around 200 GSM. I think that's more common in sketchbooks also. I find sketchbooks with 300 GSM paper to be a little bit more thicker. So if you want your sketchbook to be lightweight with more pages and easy to move around, then 200 GSM is okay. But you will not be able to do a lot of layers on that. So be mindful of that. But just rough sketch when you're traveling, I think should be okay on 200 GSM. But if you're making something which has many layers and at least 3 or 4 layers, 300 GSM is a very comfortable weight to work with and not too expensive. I have tried working with heavier paper as well, thinking that they might give better results, but I don't really see any difference in them. So they're much more expensive actually, heavier paper. And in terms of texture, it's all depending upon you. The watercolor paper comes in three textures, so rough, medium, and hot pressed, cold pressed, hot pressed, right? So it really depends upon what kind of texture you like to paint on. I always kind of move between cold press and hot press. I like both the textures. Sometimes I don't want too much detail, then I would go for cold press. Sometimes I want to make something really detailed and fine lines, and I'll go for hot pressed. And I just feel it keeps me fresh, in the sense I don't get bored of what I'm painting. So anyways, the paper pad that I have on my website has both the sides, because I am fickle like that, I would say. So I couldn't choose whether I wanted to sell pressed or I wanted to sell cold pressed, because I wanted both. So I ended up having both on my paper pad. So one side is cold pressed with a little bit of texture, not too much texture. So I don't like too much texture as well. And one side is hot press, which is nice and smooth. So yeah, texture really depending upon you. But if you're going for any watercolor paper, make sure it's 300 GSM and make sure it's 100% cotton. So yeah, that's about paper. If you have any questions for paper, let me know if I missed something. But that's what I use. I use only my brand right now, but yeah, it can change in future. I'm not saying that I'll stick to it forever. So that's my paper. Next is paints. So for the paints, it really depends if you want to go for something which you're selling for professional work, or you're going to plan to, frame it. I would recommend using artist grade paints, because they have better properties in terms of longevity. So they kind of can withstand sun and fading better. So if you're going for something that you want to frame or gift or sell, go for professional grade watercolor paint. All the brands that I recommend is Winsor Newton, there's Schminke, there is what else is there? Daniel Smith. I've not used it much, but there's Daniel Smith. There is Sennelier. I love Sennelier paints as well. And PwC, not a lot of people know about it, but it's a Korean brand, I believe. PwC paints are really good as well. Paints, go for professional grade, but if you're just painting to practice, I would not recommend spending so much money on professional grade paints. The student grade paints are pretty good. The one that I have recently started using, and I was pleasantly surprised for their price point as well as the quality. I'll show you those, one second. So these paints I have, these are from Meeden. This is like a new brand that I'm hearing, and I kind of collaborated with them. They sent me these paints to put it on my Instagram, and like, okay, I'll do it. And not too expensive, they're very, very affordable, and they're so pigmented. I really love these paints actually for student grade. So if you want to go ahead and get those for just practicing, go ahead. But otherwise, any other student grade paints are good enough. I like any other paints. I prefer tubes because I find the pans to be a bit more hard. So you have to like spray on them and make them wet and activate them. But with these paints, you can just take out how much ever you want and like freshly wet paint. And I like that consistency for the artwork that I make. So I prefer tubes. But tubes are not practical if you are going to go out and paint. So you can always have pans if you want to have them for, traveling around and things. I don't have pans. But if you have tube paints, then you have to have palettes as well. Palette to mix your paints, put your paints on. And if you're not too fussed about what it looks like, you can just use any plate in your house, I guess. Any ceramic plate. I wouldn't recommend plastic palettes for watercolor paints because I feel like they don't stick. They kind of get into a pool, and they're not the best palettes, I would say. But of all the things that I have used, The amount of time and energy and money I have wasted on palettes, finding the right palette is not funny. I didn't spend so much time finding the right brushes or paper or paints, but palettes I have spent a lot. So I'm going to show you all the palettes that I own, what I liked about those palettes and what I don't like about that palette. You are free to skip this part if you are not interested in hearing about my palettes, because there are so many of them. But I recently have discovered my favorite most palettes, so in the end I will talk about that as well. So let's start with all the palettes I have. So let me get those. So these are my palettes, my collection of all the palettes that I've had in my lifetime, and some of them are not even here because I've either sold them, given them, or they are at my mom's place. When I was moving from Singapore to London, I kind of just sent some of them home. And to be honest, if they're not with me, I have not used it. That means I don't recommend them, so you're not missing out much if I don't show them. Let's start. So where do I start with? Let me start with this plastic palette. So I had these plastic palettes. I thought I'm going to use them for, traveling or whatever, workshops. But I feel like the paint doesn't stick well on plastic. It doesn't mix well on plastic. I don't like the feel of plastic palette. I would not recommend this, but if you want to keep one for trying, go ahead. I mean, it's a very good palette actually. There's no problem with it. It has a lot of wells. It has a good mixing area. I like the fact that I can hold it in my hand, and it has some place for brushes as well. So this is a really good affordable palette to get started, but it's plastic. If the same thing was in ceramic, I would have loved it. But anyways, this is the plastic palette. Not using it much. It's here. Next palette is my metal palette, which has all my paints, and it hasn't been opened in a while. Yeah, so this is the metal palette. If I have all my Winsor & Newton Cotman, the student grade paints in this, and I use this for traveling if I need to carry my paints. I don't like pans, so I use this, and it has a nice mixing area, as you can see. And the feel of a metal palette is better than a plastic palette, so it's not as bad. And yeah, I would recommend it if you want to have something like this. Sometimes you will get this area with pans in them, so if you prefer pans, you can have this palette as well. So this is another palette. The only problem with this palette is that when you close it, you need to make sure it is clean, otherwise the wet paint will drop into your palette, and yeah, it will be all over your tubes or your pans. I've had pans which were yellow have become blue because blue paint fell on it because I closed it when it was wet. So make sure it is clean before you close it. That's the only thing, but it's a good enough palette. While I am at home, I like to have ceramic palettes. So I have this palette which was like a mixing thingy that I have used in the past, and the drawback with this is it's too small. If you're not painting with too many paints, that's fine, but as you can see, I have ended up mixing a lot of different paints here, and they kind of flow everywhere if you put water in it. So not recommended for mixing paints more than one color, I guess. But yeah, so I don't use it much now. The other palette I had was this beautiful butterfly shaped one. I have a small and a big one. This I use only because it looks good on Instagram, and I got a little, I mean, it's not even a palette, it's actually a serving dish. Again, not recommended, but if you can go ahead and try something like this, if you have like a serving dish you want to make use of. So there is a small and a big one like this, which I thrifted, by the way. I haven't spent too much money on this silly thing, so yeah, not so bad. Then the other palette that I ended up, because this mixing palette was giving me a lot of pain, I ended up buying a palette which has different wells and mixing area. Let me show you. So it looks like this. It has a few wells on top and a mixing area, but as you can see, these wells are not enough. I needed more space for my paints. I thought this 5 wells and mixing area was not enough. It was a very small palette. It's very thick and heavy, and I was always afraid that it will fall, so I ended up buying a plastic box which is used for jewelry, I think, and to keep this in it. Luckily it fit right in it, but I don't use it because it's just too small for my needs. So this is again something that I haven't used, not been able to use. I just want to finish all the paint on this palette one day and probably give it to somebody who wants it. Thrift it. Give it to my charity shop maybe. So these are the palettes I don't use. What I do use though, let me show you. Finally, I found this palette which is beautiful. It serves all the needs that I have for my palette. And starting with, it is ceramic. Secondly, it comes in a box of its own. Thirdly, it has a lid which is separate from the box and not attached to the box. I know I had those many criteria, and I can just put it under this when I'm painting, or I can put this lid away. What happens with most of these lidded boxes like I had for my other palette is when I'm painting, this lid is open and it is taking up more space on my small desk. It's like hiding something behind this, or I know it's small issue, but yeah, it was an issue. So I really like the fact that this lid comes off completely. Then it comes with its own box. I didn't have to find a box which fits this palette. It has lots of wells. It has nice big mixing area, and it serves the purpose really well, especially if you're not traveling with this. So I wouldn't recommend this as a travel palette because it is a little heavy. What I've done also is I got these little labels put on them with the name of the paints. I don't know, can you see it? With the name of the paints which is in that well. So current favorite is this palette. I'll put the link in the description if you're interested in this palette. I have, obviously, as you can see, I have done a lot of money wasting research on palettes, and I have found what I really love. I wish there was a slightly bigger palette with like more wells on this side, so the whole thing had wells. So yeah, that would have been perfect, but this is my current favorite. I would highly recommend it if you're into ceramic palettes. Yeah, if you're into ceramic palettes, so I would recommend it. So that was the brushes. We did the paper, we did paints, we did palette, which is the basic stuff to get started with watercolors. But on top of that, I wanted to share a few other things that I find helpful, and I keep going back to them and I use them a lot in my day-to-day painting. So I'll share those supplies as well with you. Okay, all right. So yes, these are the extra supplies that you may need, and I wanted to show you all. So let's start with the pencils. Color pencils. I like keeping color pencils with me. Some of the small details that you need to make are better with color pencils, especially on hot press paper. On cold press paper, color pencils don't work that well. You can see it's like a pencil mark. It's not very soft. But if you do it on a hot press paper, so if you want to make some details, these are very good to have. The detailing brush that I showed you, they work well as well. But if you're finding it troublesome to practice, you need a little bit of practice to use that detailing brush. I'll be honest with you. So initially, I used to use these pencils, and I still use them sometimes. I in fact have a class on Skillshare, the 5 minutes Betta fish class. In that I use pencils for creating some details. That Betta fish is right behind me. I think it's hanging there, if you can see. That's the one that I painted in the class. Okay, so color pencils. Then I have this pencil which is Derwent Light Wash HB pencil, which is basically a water soluble pencil. And the unfortunate thing about this, I feel it's too dark when I'm, even though it is water soluble, it's too dark. So if I'm painting like a very light flower, like a white or a yellow flower, and I keep this, I feel like it kind of changes the color of the paint if it touches it. So it kind of dissolves in the petal, and then you'll have like a gray edge to it. So I do use it. I do recommend having them with you, but be careful with this. Try and make it really light, or if you don't want to make it that, I don't know if you have this in different grades. So this is HB, but 2H pencil might be a little better, might be a little lighter. 2H, I did not find it, or I don't know if I even searched for it, but yeah, you make sure it's either HB or 2H, not anything beyond like B's and those those types. They are softer, in case you didn't know. And I love having a mechanical pencil with me. This also is a HB, H or HB, I don't remember, but light mechanical pencil. They are super fine, so even if you draw with them, it's not too dark and it's not like standing out, and you can always try and erase it later. So yeah, keep a mechanical pencil with you. Then comes to erasers. I have a normal standard eraser, but you should also have this kneaded erasers. This kneaded eraser is from Faber-Castell, and so it comes like, it's really soft, and you can break a piece of it and then just knead it. I roll it and keep it, and then you can roll it on your paper. You don't have to erase it. So the thing with erasing is it might spoil your paper. The paper becomes a little bit more, you'll distress your paper if you're erasing too much. So if you've drawn something and you want to lighten it, then just rub this kneaded eraser on top, like roll it on top. It'll take up some of that lead, and it won't show it in your paints. So love it. I would highly recommend this Faber-Castell kneaded eraser. And yeah, that's another thing. Then a lot of people don't know about this. This is like a parallel line making ruler. I love keeping this with me because I love making vase, or sometimes I love painting rooms in which you have like doors and windows and things like that, and those need to be straight lines. So this ruler kind of like rolls on top of your paper, and you can make straight parallel lines. So I love having this ruler with me. I'll try and see if I can find a link to it and put it down there in the description. But this is the other must have in your set of stationery if you're into painting things which need parallel lines. Anyway, so I think I've shared everything. Oh, one more very important thing is this gum arabic. So this gum arabic is used for paints, to bind paints, but let me see. Controls spread of wet color, reduces staining, slows drying, dilute with water as required after use, blah blah blah. I don't use it for what it has been used for. Increase transparency, brilliance and gloss. I don't know, maybe you can use it for things like that. Because it is something that is mixed with paint to bind the pigments together. So if probably you mix more of this, it makes it more transparent. That's what it says. I have not used it in that way. What I use it is for like this brush. This brush has frayed top. I don't know if you can see, but what I would do is for frayed top, I'll just dip it in this gum arabic, shape the brush a little bit, and then keep it overnight, and it's as good as new then. Especially if you have brushes which have really sharp tip and you want to keep those tips really sharp and pointy all the time, you have to just dip it, then shape it, keep it, let it dry, and that pointy tip will be back. So those are all my supplies. I hope you found this video helpful, and if you have any questions regarding any of these supplies, do let me know in the comments below. I will see you in the next one. Oh, and don't forget to subscribe. Bye.